Hey, it's Sue, and today I did the letter L for the alphabet challenge. Let's get right into it. So, for the letter L, I have decided to draw Legolas, the elf, from Lord of the Rings specifically. Now my original plan was to draw Leo from Rise of the TMNT because I love Rise of the TMNT, as you may know by now. However, I did end up rewatching Lord of the Rings. Well, kind of watching Lord of the Rings for the first time and rewatching The Hobbit recently, and it got me inspired to draw the characters. And since for some reason I really like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, even though I couldn't care less about him in The Hobbit. So I decided to draw Legolas, even though I had already finished the drawing of Leo, which I will show you guys because I do like it, and it is different from how I usually draw. But I wanted to draw Legolas, so that's what this video is going to be about. I found a reference of him holding his bow in a more idle stance. I really wanted to incorporate the bow into the illustration, because why have a bow and not put it in the drawing? But I didn't want something too actiony because I tried that earlier. Did not go well. So I just found something with it in there, but not too complicated. This hand right here, I actually do like how it ends up turning out. This drawing I do right now, not the finished thing, but I do really like the hand and how it turned out. I was having a good day for hands, so it worked out well. I don't know what movie this was from. I think it might have been the first one. But yeah, so he's wearing an outfit from one of the movies. I don't know. I did try and make him look a little bit more like the actor who actually played him. However, I do not think I succeeded. You can tell he's Legolas, but you can't tell he's whatever actor. Oh, Orlando Bloom. Yes, that is him. I just remembered his name. Thought I was gonna have to go look it up or something, but nope, I figured it out. Anyways, I had to draw his face first, and usually I go for the hair first. Or sometimes, which is what I would have done for him, but he has long hair, and I do get discouraged when my male characters start looking like girls, especially because of their hair. So, I did not do his hair first, I did his face first. I did not really want to do line art for this picture, so instead I opted to do kind of another sketch on top of this second one I did. To kind of do the line art, and after flipping the canvas and adjusting a couple of the features, trying to make it all look a little bit more like Orlando Bloom. Still, don't think I succeeded, mainly because of the face shape, but yeah, no. He doesn't really look like him. I mean, he looks more like him in the sketch than he does in the liner, but either way, maybe I needed to redo his head. Nope, not gonna do that. I don't need to go back. We'll just leave it. Got distracted writing his name in a calligraphy style I learned. Realized I spelled it wrong, then got distracted again, squiggling a brush, and finally got into lining this. I used the watercolor pencil in the Ibis Paint brush library for this one, because I wanted something with more texture than the dip pen hard that I usually use. And overall I just tried to change anything I wanted to, just as you do with the second sketch layer, or a third sketch layer, I guess, and I ended up using it as I mentioned previously. Me and my older sister have been rewatching Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I love The Hobbit. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But whenever we watched The Lord of the Rings, I never stayed the whole time, and profoundly declared that I very much disliked the movies. But I didn't really have a right to say that because I never fully watched them. And so finally, I warmed up to the idea of actually watching them. And the only reason I didn't want to fully watch them before was because I was completely partial to The Hobbit, and I refused to let anything else be there at all. I was just like, The Hobbit is all that exists, and nothing else needs to be acknowledged. But we have finally gone to watch The Lord of the Rings, and I'm actually quite enjoying it. As I mentioned before, I really like Bilbo and the dwarves in Hobbit, and never really cared about Legolas. In fact, I just was kind of like, okay, he's there, whatever. But for some reason in this one, I quite like him. I think it's because they developed his character more. And he also seems a lot younger in this one. Because the actor's younger, of course. But, like, it just cracks me up. Because, like, 60 years later, he's even younger. He de-aged phenomenally. Anyway. So I have been really enjoying the movies. We are halfway through the last one now. And, yeah, I know they don't end the happiest. Because, you know, metaphor for death. A lot of them get on that boat. But, like, it is what it is, and if I dislike it, I shall choose to ignore the ending, as I do with the end of The Hobbit. If you know, you know. Anyway, at this point, I had nearly finished the liner, and I later regret that I did not always fully close off the lines I usually close off, because although I was able to bucket most of it, when I tried to render later and tried to select areas to shade, it made it a little bit more difficult. I also had to add in the quiver last minute because I completely forgot about it. And so I put that in there because he's got to get his arrows from somewhere. Even though he never seems to run out, he's got to get them from somewhere. He's not that magic. Anyway, I adjusted the eyes a little bit more, and then I was ready to move on to coloring and rendering. The first thing I chose to color was the background because I wanted to do it before I got too bored with the art and was just like, never mind, I don't want to do background. I really liked the way the trees looked in the background of the picture I was looking at, so I tried to copy that and just try to simplify it. I used the watercolor brush to make them kind of textured. I was not planning on blurring them out, though I do end up doing that. I filled in the background with black, but didn't like that because it looked like something was going to come out of the forest and murder him. And the picture I was looking at, it was much brighter, so I ended up doing that. And then I kept trying to find ways to draw the leaves. No matter what I did, they just looked weird, and I did not like them. And I was just completely at a loss for, like, what do you do with leaves? And yeah, I tried dots, which is what people do with painting. Nope, didn't like it. So I ended up going back to the watercolor brush and just splotching in stuff. Another technique I've seen for painting where they, layer up and slowly add highlights. And I liked this more, so I went with that. And I ended up adding quite a few layers of leaves, but this top layer I ended up mostly getting rid of because it looked a little bit too busy and also made it seem like the trees were like moving by really fast because of the way I smudged it around. Yeah, and at this point I was pretty much happy with it, so I was ready to move on to... So because while line arting this one, I found out that the watercolor brush automatically blends things together, I decided to go for a more painting style for the rendering. I could have done a little bit more with the rendering. It's pretty simple, and I usually when I render, I like to go big, bold, crazy colors, as you see with most of my art. But for this one, I'm fine with keeping it more simple. I already spent a couple hours on it, so no need to spend longer. Now, I began selecting areas, but the watercolor pencil still picks up the pigment from the other ones. So I didn't have a choice but to be very careful around any other areas that were a different color because I would be dragging around. The places I had the most trouble with was the strap thingies, the buckles, and his braids. The rendering wasn't hard. I did have some trouble with the selecting later. Like I said, it did. The not closing up the lines did mess with my selecting. But I did most of this rendering while watching a movie with my little sisters. And I didn't have much trouble with the process. I was originally planning on doing all my rendering from the reference I was looking at of Legolas. However, my phone was about to die, so in the end I had to not do that and just kind of wing it based on what I had seen. And it looked like all the lighting was coming from the upper left, so I did that. There you can see I was smudging the blue into there. Had a lot of trouble keeping that out. I also had a lot of trouble blending it out because it wasn't on the same layer as the base color. I ended up having to basically create a new base color for the green because it was not blending into it. I was originally going to do all the rendering on the original color layer, but I kept forgetting to switch onto the other color layers. So I knew I just needed to clip a layer to a folder and do all the rendering that way. I don't have much to say for the rest of this process. The main things I would like to talk about is the skin, which didn't take me very long to do. I just kind of darkened up a color, and I also did the hair, which I did struggle to find a color for. I tried the same technique I used for the skin, but ended up going for a different color, and then my older sister came up behind me. And we often joke about staring at Legolas' hair whenever he's on camera, because it's just so blonde. So she's like, it needs to be glowing. Why isn't it glowing? So I ended up having to add huge highlights to it. And after that, I would say I succeeded in making his hair quite shiny. I did some final touches on the rendering, rendered any areas I forgot, like the hands stuff. And at that point I was done. I went back and turned on the background, but I was not seeing enough contrast. So I went in and tried adjusting the color layers, but it wasn't really working. So I blurred out the background and added some more elements to the foreground after removing the leaves from the closest layer of trees. As some final touches, I went in and added a green or greenish bluish multiply layer to the right side of Legolas, and then added a blue or highlight to the other side. I lowered the opacity quite a bit of the green layer, and then erased it anywhere the light would be hitting. And then I added another multiply layer to deepen the shadows even more, because I cannot go and finish a picture without adding some sort of multiply layer that goes over most of the character. That is just how I do things, and if you're going to watch my videos, you're going to have to get used to it, because I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Anyway, after doing some more shading, I was pretty much happy with the picture, so I was ready to call it done. The only thing left to do was sign the picture, and since I learned that new style of calligraphy handwriting stuff earlier, I decided to sign it like that, and I think it looks very elfy and fits the piece quite nice. And so my picture of Legolas is officially done. I quite enjoyed making this, and hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye!